Okay, welcome friends. I'm so glad that you could join me tonight for our live training. It is a pleasure to be with you today. And I'm so excited to share with you some of my favorite coaching tools. Again, I want to thank you for coming into our live coaching experience. We're going to start by having a 20 to 30 minute teaching segment here in the beginning where I'll be sharing some takeaway tools for you to enjoy. If you have questions, I'm going to provide you the opportunity to do some questions at the end of the teaching segment. So if you want to jot them down on a piece of paper, or if you'd like to put them into the chat box, I will do my best to catch those in a timely way. We're going to cover a lot of material. It's very fun. And of course, I welcome the questions. And then following our Q&A, I'm going to open up the floor to be coached. So if you are here and you have a question or an issue or a thought that you want some coaching on, there's a couple of different ways that we can do this. When clients come into the live call and they want to be coached, sometimes they want to stay off camera and they just want to put their question or comment into the chat box. And then I can coach from that space and just address it directly. So know that you're welcome to ask a question in that way, and I will do my best to provide you with an answer. Another way that we coach is we bring someone on live through our video tool, and then we have a conversation. You tell me what's going on, you talk to me about the thoughts and feelings that are surrounding certain issues, and then we ask questions and spend a good 10 or 15 minutes working through the different thoughts and feelings and actions that are impacting your result. Coaching is such a fantastic experience, and the reason why I love coaching is because it heightens my awareness as to how my thoughts are creating my results. And our results always are generated from our thoughts, feelings, and actions. So as we move through this segment together tonight, I hope that you'll be able to connect the dots and see how those pieces come into play and work with one another. Okay. Yes, Jillian, I see that you do want to be coached. I will be so happy to bring you on, and we will make time for you. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to launch into some teaching concepts. In advance of this call, I mentioned to you that we're going to explore the 3 reasons why you're not taking action in your life, what the result is of not taking action, and then a takeaway tool that you can implement in order to create that shift and start creating momentum and traction towards developing a better result. So with that being said, let me share my screen. Okay, I have put together some notes on a PowerPoint presentation, and I really love the visuals that that offers us as we're in a teaching space. And I love that it allows you to focus more on the teaching concepts rather than me as the coach. So please enjoy as we go through this presentation. And again, jot down those questions if you have questions throughout the teaching segment. Now, I am a life and weight loss coach. I am certified with the Life Coach School. And as you can see, there is a link for my website if you want to come on and learn more about my background. I primarily coach to women who are looking to recommit to their weight loss journey and need support in gaining traction in losing those first 10 pounds. That's where I spend the majority of my time in coaching, but it's not exclusive to weight loss. I do handle a lot of other issues such as work-life balance, difficult relationships, parenting issues, and oftentimes I end up coaching people in the space of building self-confidence and increasing feelings of self-worth. Now, if you want to book an appointment with me and you've never been on a coaching call, that link is there. It's the one in the middle that says samanthanilson.as.me. I would invite you to take advantage of one of my free consult calls. I always offer my new clients a 60-minute discovery call where we can come together and really start to peel the layers back of what's going on in your space to understand why you're feeling the way that you are, how you want to feel differently, and what steps you can take to accomplish a new result. And then finally, my email link is right there at the bottom. So if you're interested in sending me a note privately, that's a wonderful way to be in touch, and I do my very best to return those messages within a 24-hour period. Okay, so first off, there are 3 reasons why we don't do the things that we want to do. As human beings, we naturally want to gravitate to what is most comfortable and what is most familiar. We don't like to be pushed out of our box. And there are 3 different ways that this tends to show up in our actions. We call this the motivational triad. And as human beings, we're hardwired to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and expend the least amount of energy that's required toward any task. So within this motivational triad, when you're trying to step out of a default behavior and try something new, you might find that you're avoiding pain because what you're striving to do is challenging and difficult. For instance, let's say that you want to start incorporating an exercise routine into your daily routine. You hesitate to put on those tennis shoes. You hesitate to honor your time. You're avoiding pain and you're slipping into a default behavior of avoidance by letting other things get in your way. Maybe you choose to clean the dishes instead. Maybe you choose to help with homework or go out for a drive with your teenager and let them get some more driving time underneath their belt, because then that lets you off the hook in having to honor your commitment to yourself of incorporating an exercise routine. So we naturally desire to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and expend the least amount of effort possible. The best way I can probably articulate the motivational triad at work is when we think about inviting our children to do Saturday chores. Now, if you are a parent and you have children and you know that you need to get the garage cleaned out on Saturday morning, you're going to be met with the motivational triad. Your kids are going to avoid pain by hiding under those covers, or maybe like locking themselves in the bathroom. They're going to seek pleasure by taking an extra long time at breakfast and getting that cereal down, or maybe they'll kind of quietly slide away and read a book in the corner, or they may go to the video games. And then when you finally do catch on that they're like engaging in the motivational triad and you rein them in and you're bringing them back to the assigned chore, they're going to expend the least amount of energy and effort possible in supporting the task. You're probably going to get like a C- effort when it comes to cleaning the garage, because kids naturally don't like to work. Adults naturally don't like to work. And that's the struggle that we experience, and that's what we engage with when we're trying to overcome our primitive self, our default behaviors, and do better. So the motivational triad is at work all the time, trying to keep us safe in the cave and doing those things that are comfortable and familiar. Other examples that I share here are when you ask someone to take out the garbage. This 30-second task can take 15 or 20 minutes, depending on who you ask in the house, because they're avoiding pain, they're seeking pleasure, and they're trying to put off the task of getting the garbage to the garbage can outside. Likewise, if you've been a college student before and you've had an exam to prepare for, you probably have had experience with the motivational triad. I know that when it comes time for me to get ready for a trip, I put it off to the very last minute. And then I feel stressed and I feel rushed because I'm really avoiding the work of laying out the clothes, going through the checklist, and making sure that I have everything that I need. The motivational triad keeps us stuck in our story, it keeps us stuck in our drama, and it prevents us from accomplishing the real goals and the real desires that we want to have manifest in our lives. So we naturally feel resistance to doing what is always in our best interest. And when we know this, we can actually hit the pause button and like put our thoughts and our actions into check. And we actually can kind of have a moment of feeling good about catching on to the motivational triad at work in our space. When we're able to like pause and realize that we're doing things that are counterproductive, then that's good news, friends. That allows us to step up our game and to make better choices. Now, the results that we often see from engaging in that motivational triad of avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and putting forth the least amount of effort possible is what we call buffering. Buffering is just as it sounds. If you've ever tried to like download a tool on your computer or start up a new web page and you see that blue circle just spin and spin on your computer screen, that's what we call buffering. And as human beings, we naturally tend to buffer when we sit in that motivational triad. We want to do things that bring us pleasure, but unfortunately, engaging with those behaviors also brings us a net negative result. The ones that are most common and the most easily identified with are behaviors such as overspending. when we don't exercise our self-control and we're not operating from our higher brain, from our higher selves, then we indulge in and we allow overspending to occur, which naturally brings on debt. This is the net negative that comes from buffering and avoiding our responsibility, avoiding our emotions by overspending. Likewise, when we choose to eat foods that aren't good for us, or we overconsume because maybe we don't want to have a difficult conversation with our spouse, and so we're avoiding that processing of the emotion, processing of the conflict and the difficult conversation, we go to food. We walk into the pantry, we find the chips, we find the donuts and the pretzels, and we overindulge. That's buffering. That behavior keeps us stuck in our story. And while it may feel good immediately for the very short-term moment, we have a net negative and we end up gaining weight. We feel poorly about ourselves. Then we pay the price of having a lot of negative mental drama and dialogue, and it's a net negative result. Likewise, whenever we choose to overdrink, because maybe we're avoiding a situation or we're avoiding a person or we're avoiding our responsibilities, then we have a net negative by having the hangover the next day and feeling poorly about ourselves because of engaging in the overdrinking. A real easy one for us to identify when it comes to buffering is playing video games. This puts all three components of that motivational triad at work. We definitely are seeking pleasure. We're avoiding any pain by doing what is better for us, whether it's homework, chores, paying the bills, or engaging with family members. And of course, as we know, video games simulate a real experience, but it really isn't a real experience. And so we're kind of like living vicariously through this animated video game. And we're expending the least amount of energy possible by buffering with the video game and allowing that to occupy our space and occupy our time. So I think video games is a real easy one to go to because usually everybody gets it. All right, so how is it that we can overcome this default behavior of the motivational triad and the net negative consequences that we experience when we remain stagnant and we're sitting in the motivational triad? One of the best tools that I have found to help us move through the motivational triad and to understand why we're doing what we're doing is to engage in better thought management. All of our thoughts create feelings in our lives, and our feelings create actions. Now, did you know that we have around 50,000 thoughts per day? That is a lot of internal conversation at work. And more often than not, these thoughts are on autopilot. We've become so accustomed to thinking and believing our thoughts that we don't even question them. We don't even pause to ask ourselves if our thoughts are valid and if they're serving us in a really productive way. And so when we step into a space of managing our thoughts from a more purposeful space and with more intention and being deliberate in managing our thoughts, then it increases our awareness. One way that I like to visualize thought management is to think about cleaning our house. So just as we have to do dusting on a regular basis within our home to keep the dust off of the furniture, so we need to engage in managing our thoughts on a regular basis. Our minds become very cluttered, and when they're unattended, then our thoughts can really run away from us, and they can take us down into this downward spiral of feelings of self-defeat, overwhelm, chaos, unhappiness, and it can really create a net negative when we're not staying on top of the thought management work. Just as it is with dusting our house and needing to do it on a regular basis, we need to turn the light on a little brighter within our minds and ask ourselves to examine the thoughts that we hold and question whether they're serving us well or not, and if they're really true. And when we determine that they're not of worth any longer, we need to part ways with those thoughts and find better thoughts to bring on into our space that will serve us in a more abundant way. I'm going to give you some examples here shortly in demonstrating how thoughts can be defeating and create obstacles in our lives, and how thoughts can be empowering. It's very fascinating when you come to realize that thoughts are truly optional and that we don't have to believe everything that we think. The power of the thought management tool is that it allows us to ask ourselves, why? Why am I thinking this? Why would I choose to continue to think and feel this way? It's serving me in a poor way, and I don't want to feel that way any longer. So the thought management activity that I'm going to invite you to do and start practicing is just like taking care of our housework around the home on a daily basis. Now, in order to engage with better thoughts, you have to be very purposeful, and you have to be willing to experience some discomfort and allow for some vulnerability. It's like traveling on a new, unfamiliar road. As you can see in my slide, I have a picture of two different roads here that are sitting side by side. Now, the thoughts that we're very familiar with and that keep us stuck in doing the same things and repeating the same behaviors, that's like traveling on a well-paved road that's very familiar. Have you ever taken yourself to the grocery store and all of a sudden you've arrived at the store and you didn't even realize that you were like hardly in the car and driving your vehicle from A to B? That's how it is with our thoughts that are familiar. When we have thoughts that we've thought for a very, very long time, they become like that well-paved, well-traveled road. They're very familiar. We can do it automatically without hardly any awareness. When we invite ourselves to engage in new and different thoughts, it's like traveling on a dirt road that's unfamiliar. We have to be more attentive. We have to use more caution. We have to be more purposeful because we don't know what's going to lie around the bend. Sometimes we engage with, big boulders in the road and it's bumpy and uncomfortable, and it forces us to really be purposeful, and it forces us to really ask the best of ourselves in staying the course with this new and better thought. Again, I'm going to demonstrate the contrast for you as we come into some examples that were emailed to me in how our thoughts can run on autopilot and put us into a space of defeat versus how our thoughts can be engaged in a purposeful way and really create new momentum and new traction and create better results. Okay, when we ask better of ourselves and we're willing to do a thought download and examine our thoughts from a space of curiosity and compassion, you need to know that you may experience some cognitive dissonance. Now, that's a really fancy term for just knowing that you're going to have an internal struggle. So, for instance, here's an example of what cognitive dissonance can look like. We know that smoking is bad for us. There's scientific evidence that proves smoking is bad for us. And yet we still choose to smoke because we want to indulge with that motivational triad and we want to seek pleasure. So even though we have evidence, we have our common sense, our higher brain even tells us that smoking is a bad activity to engage in, we still choose to engage in smoking, although the facts sit there on the other side of the fence encouraging us not to do it. That is cognitive dissonance. It's when we have two contrasting thoughts that are battling one another within our internal space. Another example of cognitive dissonance is when you know that you should be abstaining from sugar. Let's say that you've decided you want to give up sugar because it triggers you to eat more, it triggers weight gain, it triggers your cravings, and you know it's always a net negative when we engage with sugar. So, in knowing that sugar doesn't serve us well and that we're going to gain weight and we're not going to be able to honor our food plan, and we're not going to be able to lose weight, we still engage with sugar. We still eat that piece of birthday cake and have a scoop of ice cream, and then we justify that choice. We rationalize that choice. This is the cognitive dissonance at work as we're trying to up-level our behaviors and our choices, and we're trying to move from one side of the fence to the other. So really, all this really means is that you're human. You're going to have some discomfort as you move away from those familiar thoughts and you're trying to engage with your more purposeful thoughts, and it doesn't mean that you have failed. It simply means that you're human and that you're having a human experience. And what I like to encourage all of my clients to do is to meet themselves from a space of love, curiosity, compassion, and recommitment when that happens. Now, the way that we do a thought download is very, very simple. It's a really simple exercise, but there's a lot of power that lies behind it. What we want to do is allow our thoughts to flow freely from our mind to a notepad on a piece of paper with a pen. We want to sit in a space where we're not going to have any interruptions, and we're going to actually allow these thoughts to come to our notepad without any judgment, without any restriction, and just allow ourselves to clear the clutter from our minds. When we put our thoughts to paper, it frees us from having to babysit, entertain, and re-engage with those thoughts. It allows you to become the observer to your thoughts. And once you become an observer to your thoughts, then you can take more intentional action in deciding how you want to think and feel. So thoughts are always optional. I absolutely have learned this truth in my life over the last year, and I want to offer it to you as well. We can have one situation take place for two different people, and because those individuals are different, they're going to have two different kinds of thoughts in the situation as the situation unfolds. It's very fascinating. Just to give you a quick example, I've used this before with my clients, but let's pretend that it's garbage day and all the garbage cans are sitting along the curb, okay? Now one neighbor sees, we'll call this neighbor Krista. Krista sees that her neighbor Gary goes out and pulls the garbage can back up to the curb, off the curb, and sets it near the fence. She immediately has a thought of, I should be more responsible and more timely in getting my garbage can off the curb today. I know it's garbage day. Now, Krista's next door neighbor, who's named Cammie, also has her garbage can sitting on the curb. Gary does the very same action and goes and grabs the garbage can and puts it back near Cammie's gate. Cammie has a very different experience, and she thinks to herself, I have the best neighbors in the world. I love how they're so caring and thoughtful, and they really look out for me. The same experience happened for both ladies, but we had two different thoughts occur with the same event. So our thoughts are always optional, and they're not always true. Gary didn't necessarily think that Krista was being an inattentive neighbor and shirking in her responsibility, but that was the default thought that she ran to because that's how she chose to attach meaning to his action. So as we examine our thoughts, we want to make sure that we're allowing for time, we're allowing for a quiet environment to support us in doing our thought work, and we always want to meet ourselves from a place of curiosity and compassion, and we don't want to put judgment forth when we do write down the thoughts that are spinning in our minds. We just want to let them be. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I always like to offer a bonus reading and a worksheet with the thought management tools that I offer. So if you want to understand the thought download at a deeper level and you want to do some Q&A to examine how you're processing your thoughts and the ways that you're engaging with your thoughts and the outcomes that you're experiencing, then send me an email. Let me know that you would like to have a copy of this takeaway, and I will send it out to you within the next day, and you can explore this tool just a little bit further. When we come to realize that our thoughts truly are optional and that not all of our thoughts are true, then it allows us to reestablish a new relationship with ourselves. We can increase those feelings of trust, we can increase those feelings of confidence and follow through, and we can honor ourselves from a new space by building a new relationship with ourselves that's built on better thoughts, feelings, and actions. The thought download really allows us to release ourselves from our story. It can release us from the drama, and it can release us from the bad feelings that we've been carrying around about ourselves. We don't have to go throughout life feeling like we have a backpack full of boulders on our back, keeping us weighed down. And when we're willing to examine our thoughts and question ourselves, question whether they're coming from a space of love and compassion, or if they're coming from a space of defeat and overwhelm and low self-esteem, that's when the real work can begin and we can step forward in a new and better way. Okay, friends, this is what I have to offer you today for our teaching segment. Again, if you would like to reach out to me and take advantage of the bonus reading and the bonus worksheet that I have available, drop me an email so I'll know how to get back in touch with you and provide that to you. And again, if you would like to engage in a coaching experience and spend some time doing a little bit of this thought management work together, then I invite you to get on my schedule and make a 60-minute appointment so we can come into this Zoom room in a private one-on-one way, and we can spend some time together working through the thoughts, feelings, and actions that you're currently embracing and holding dear and near to your heart, And we can examine whether you want to hold on to those and if they're serving you well, or if you're ready to part ways and start gaining traction and creating new results in your life today. Thank you so much. That's what I have for you in my teaching capacity. And now let's come on back to, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. It takes me a moment sometimes to get my tools worked out. All right, and now I want to come back into our space and allow you the opportunity to be coached. If you have something that's been on your mind, or a question or a comment about the training tools which I just offered. So this would be your time to either drop a comment into the chat box, or if you want to engage your camera and come on live, I'd be happy to take you live and do some coaching here within our live experience. Jillian, you mentioned that you do have a topic that you want to be coached on. So friends, for the rest of you that are in attendance, if you have that question that you want to bring forth about the thought download, the motivational triad, or those buffering behaviors, go ahead and jot them down and hold on to those while I go ahead and coach Jillian, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Jillian, I'm going to bring you on. All right, are you with me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, excellent. How are you doing, Jillian?
I'm doing great. This is so wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Okay, so I'm going to try to narrow this down. Essentially, I have an invitation to a wedding at the end of July.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I just turned up my volume. Thank you.
Okay. And the invitation was from that I've known since I was 8 years old. So it feels really important that I attend the wedding. There's a bit of a conflict. Are you able to hear me? I'm hearing noise.
Are you getting a little feedback?
Here, let me.
Can you hear me like this?
I do. Is this
Okay.
better? Is our connection better?
Yes, perfect. I don't know what I was hearing. Awesome. This is great. Sorry.
Okay.
I have an invitation to this wedding. I feel like I have to go, this pressure to go. There's a bit of a conflict where I have another engagement that I was invited to, my beloved's family that's out of state. So attending both is just not really possible.
Okay.
I've sort of alluded to my very, very good friend that I was going to go to the wedding. But as I've been feeling into it, and as I have the actual invitation now at home, and I have to actually like send it out by next week, I feel like where I need to be and the best place to go is not to the wedding and to my beloved's family's event out of state. And I do not know how to tell him, my friend, that I can't attend his wedding. And it is like, I'm really just not figuring out how to figure out my thoughts around this.
Okay. All right. So you shared with me that you're feeling a lot of pressure. You're feeling a lot of internal conflict, and you're feeling torn. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And friends, for those of you that are watching, I am just jotting down some notes from what Jillian has shared so that I can kind of put my tools into action in helping Jillian to understand what's going on presently and to examine where she might want to go with the thoughts and feelings that are at work with having these two events in her on her schedule. So you shared with me that you're feeling pressure, you're feeling an internal conflict and torn. And the circumstance that's at work here is you really have two events at the same time, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So that is our neutral circumstance in this situation. You have two events at the same time, okay? And when you think about having two events at the same time, what's the first thought that comes to your mind in knowing that you've got two good choices?
Shit.
It can be a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
How can I be in two places at once? That's sort of like what I'm feeling. And the other piece that I wish I wouldn't have made it seem like I was going to go. Like I sort of said, of course I'm going to be there. It's just the assumption. Of course, there's no way I wouldn't be at his wedding. So yeah, does that?
Okay, so really your thought is, I have already said I'm going to be at the wedding. Of course, we know those background thoughts are present, that you're feeling the conflict, you're feeling, torn, and there's this internal struggle.
Yeah.
But the thought is, I've already said I'm going to be at this wedding.
Yes.
So now you're trying to figure out how to move through that space and make sense of this scenario, because it sounds to me like you've already made the decision to attend your sweetheart's family event. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you feel firm in that position? And are you feeling clean in that decision?
It feels firm until I start thinking about having to have the conversation with my friend that I can't go to the wedding. Then I'm like, but it feels firm in that I know that's where I want to be.
Okay. So that's what's really driving the feelings of the internal conflict and the pressure. I have to have a conversation about not attending the wedding.
Yeah.
And, as we peel back the layers of the scenario and of the two events being on the schedule at the same time, that's the real meat of the story. I have to have a conversation about not attending the wedding.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's really your thought that's at work in knowing that you've got two events that conflict with one another. So I'm going to capture that just one moment.
Absolutely. Oh, this is so great.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you again, and we're just going to do a check and balance to see one more time, Jillian. When you have this thought, I have to have a conversation about not attending the wedding, what feeling is triggered?
Disappointment. Well, I feel like I'm being a disappointment.
So personal, like internal disappointment.
Yeah, like I just feel like I'm letting him down, and I don't want to, but yeah, I feel like I'm letting him down.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, in having this feeling of disappointment sit within your space, how does that show up in what you're choosing to do or what you're not choosing to do in this situation?
Yeah, the invitation is sitting on my couch now for 2 weeks because I can't get myself to send it out and have a conversation. So I'm not doing anything. I'm sort of just frozen.
Okay. You're avoiding.
I'm avoiding. There we go. I'm avoiding.
Okay. You're avoiding and you're feeling frozen. And as a result, you're just not engaging. You've disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay. You've disconnected from, and also to some degree, you're kind of like resisting and pretending just that, the situation isn't there, not handling the work that needs to be handled.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So from this place of avoidance and resistance and not engaging, how is that reflecting in the result for you, Jillian?
Torment daily. Until I have this conversation, all I'm doing is cycling back and forth. Like, how can I be in both places? And it just feels terrible. Okay.
So you're having an increase with your internal dialogue, an increased negative internal dialogue.
Yes.
And may I offer also that you're increasing those feelings of like shame and disappointment and avoidance, which totally puts you into a spinning cycle of coming back around to not engaging and having the conversation and then feeling disconnected and not honoring what you need to do in order to really get on the same page with your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to offer you something, and this may be hard to hear and it may be hard to really embrace. You're worried about your friend feeling disappointed, right? Well, all of our feelings come from our thoughts. As you know, we have coached a lot together.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, you truly do not have the power to create disappointment for your friend. You're disappointing yourself presently because you're allowing the thought of not wanting to have this conversation and letting your friend down. You're allowing that to simmer and sit in your space. So you're experiencing disappointment. But when you engage in the conversation with your friend and when you come into that space of having this adult conversation, your friend's going to have his own thought about what you share. And his own thought is going to trigger his own feeling. But we as individuals, we are not powerful enough to cause the emotions of others. That runs independently within their own space and is independent of us.
Yeah.
You're going to offer this result. You're going to offer this announcement to him It's a matter of fact that he's the one who gets to choose what meaning he attaches to it and how he's going to feel. And you're not responsible for his emotional well-being in this case.
Yeah, I hear that and I'm like, yeah, that's so, I didn't even allow myself to think about that possibility.
Does it make sense logically?
Completely. Yeah.
Now, on the logical side, I know, sometimes we can hear things logically and we're like, yeah, that makes sense, but we're still heavily attached to it. Yeah. And we sometimes have a hard time like letting go of the emotion that sits there, even though the common sense within us says, well, of course, he's a grown-up. He's going to determine how he feels about me not being at the wedding. I don't have that power over him.
Yeah.
He's going to be running his own model. He's going to be running his own thoughts and assigning his own feelings to what I share. And I do also want to offer that whenever we engage with someone from a clean space and a place of love and honesty, then we're putting all the advantages on our side as well as on their side, right?
Yeah.
We're neutralizing the situation.
Yeah.
I can see that you really have been laboring over this and it's caused you a lot of conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it showing up in other areas at all because you're carrying this around like a really important story?
It's in even something as simple as like our birthdays are 4 days apart, him and I, the one who's having the wedding. And even in the way I reached out to him for his birthday, it's like I feel myself pulling away because I feel so like, I can't believe I haven't told you I'm not going to your wedding. And there was this emotional element where he just lost his father and his brother very recently. So I have this, I'm so rooted to his childhood that I feel like I just know how important it is. And I know how much he wants me to go, and he's said it. So I'm so like, oh, this feels so difficult to say. Right. But what you just said still allows me to logically, because I've been so caught in the emotion that I haven't even allowed myself to see it as this neutral space. So this helps a lot in neutralizing.
Yes. And sometimes even in getting clean with our thoughts and getting clean with our emotions and having those hard conversations, sometimes even in the midst of that, we still have feelings that can be challenging because we're human beings.
Yeah.
But, it could be a disappointment in a different kind of way rather than letting down and then not being there for your friend. It could just be, I'm just sad. I'm sad I can't make the event because I love you so much. And it can be a clean emotion and a clean experience with that challenging emotion of sadness and disappointment rather than the tainted one. And that's really what you're engaging with, is the tainted experience of feeling the disappointment and feeling like you're the bad guy and letting him down.
That's so interesting. That's actually really helpful because it's almost like I couldn't even see the place where I could just be sad and still say I can't go. So I could feel myself going, well, I don't like having this tantrum. Like I don't have, trying to justify, I go into like, I don't have to go. And that's just that. And almost to try to like, pep talk my way through to the decision, which just being okay with the sadness feels so much better.
Right. And sadness is just part of our story as human beings, right?
Yeah.
It's the contrast. And, this is the difference between what I call clean pain and dirty pain. It's still painful. Having to say no is still painful, but you can engage with that pain from a clean space of love and compassion and still support.
Yeah.
Or if you let it brew and simmer and you're spinning in the negative internal dialogue with it and beating yourself up because of it, that's when it's considered a dirty pain because it's a net negative.
Totally. Oh, that's so clear. Oh, that was so great. Okay. Thank you.
You are welcome. I don't want to leave you hanging though. Let's come into a new, better, and purposeful model so we can demonstrate the contrast for our friends that are observing tonight.
Of course.
Jillian is one of my clients, and we coach together a lot. She's a joy to coach, and I love engaging in this space with her, and she always meets me with really good challenges. So I try to let her, experience the full spectrum of what's available through the coaching tools, and I want to make sure that we kind of like close the gap on this, and that we try and create something a little bit with more purpose and that will serve her better. So Jillian, we have two conflicting events on your calendar. You have a wedding with a dear friend, and you have a family opportunity with your sweetheart. What is it that you ultimately want to experience for yourself? And as you know, because you're familiar with my coaching tool called the model, we're going to start in our result that we want as our end game, and we're going to come up through it backwards. And so I'll be asking you the questions that we normally go through kind of in a reverse order.
Perfect.
So what's the result and the outcome that you want for yourself, knowing that you've got these two events that conflict with each other?
I want to be able to cleanly say no to the wedding and be at the family event really enjoying myself and not feeling like I'm not in both places at once.
Okay. So you're going to be able to say no to the wedding from a space of love and from a clean space and appreciation. And you're also going to give yourself permission to be at the family event and be totally engaged and present.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's going to create a totally positive outcome for you and your sweetheart and for the moment and the experience. Now, in order to do that, what do you need to choose to do with your behaviors?
I need to have the conversation with my friend.
Okay. All right. So in engaging in that conversation with your friend, tell me specifically, how are you planning to do that? Let's get really detailed. Are you going to go over and visit?
Well, I was going to have a text conversation, but we communicate through text, so this feels appropriate.
Okay. All right. So have a conversation with your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to attach a deadline to that so that you're going to make it happen sooner rather than later?
Well, I have a deadline because I still need to send out my RSVP by the 25th. So I want to have the conversation before next week, by middle of next week.
Okay. Does that feel good to you? Does that feel acceptable?
Yeah, I'm going to be away for the weekend. I'd like to have that. You know what? No, I want to have this conversation tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, you're really engaging with your better self and you're asking yourself to show up as an emotional adult, especially when you advance your timeline on that, right? Yeah. And it's going to take, what kind of an emotion is it going to take in order to engage in that conversation?
I don't know. Can you help me on this one?
For me, it would trigger a feeling of courage.
Yes, absolutely. There we go. I kept thinking love. Yes, courage.
I would need courage because you do have such a deep relationship with this friend and there are such strong feelings of love and companionship here.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to foster that feeling of courage to do the work, to text the conversation and just find those beautiful, correct words that will demonstrate how you really feel.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you sit in this space of courage, knowing that you need to send this text, so you can release yourself from the responsibility of being at the wedding. And so you can also be 100% present with your event for your sweetheart and his family. What do you need to believe about yourself that will activate your courage?
That I'm capable. What comes up right now is that I'm capable of saying no with love, mm-hmm. which in turn is a yes to myself.
Right. Right. Okay, I'm just jotting that down right now. And you are spot on. When we say no, and we say no from a place of love, even in difficult circumstances, we're giving ourselves permission to experience the yes. Mm. And that's exactly what you're activating and creating for yourself.
Yeah.
And I want to again honor and reflect to you that you're showing up as an emotional adult. When we sit in a space of avoidance and resistance, that's emotional childhood, right?
Yeah.
And
that's where I've been.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very good. It really just doesn't serve us well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then he gets to take that information and do what he wants to do with it. And even if he's angry or he is upset or if he responds with harsh words, you get to know that you acted with integrity and you were in alignment with yourself and who you needed to be in that moment. And that even if he has a negative response, it doesn't impact your love toward him.
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm going to listen back to this call for sure before I have this conversation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That is some hard work. That is some deep work. And I really appreciate you being willing to put that out there for us to examine it in this space together.
Oh, thank you so much. This helped tremendously.
You're welcome. You've got this. You've got this. Okay, Jillian, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and put you on mute and turn your camera off. Thank you so much. Let's see. There we go. Okay, friends, I did invite you, I gave you the opportunity to drop some comments into chat. If you have anything that you have questions on, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to take some live questions. I did have some emails come in as well that I can speak to and share with you if you're curious to see what some of my other clients are dealing with in their lives. And Stephanie says, thank you to Jillian. Being coached was so instructive and your situation was so relatable. So thank you, Jillian. That was really fantastic for all of our friends to see that experience. Emotional adulthood is a really fascinating concept. It always asks us to show up in the very best ways that we possibly can. We take responsibility for our emotions. We take responsibility for our actions, and we step away from blame, shame, avoidance. We step away from all those behaviors that kind of keep us sitting in this space of surface level engagement. Because, you know, whenever you've engaged with a 5 or a 7-year-old and you ask them a really hard question and they don't want to tell you the truth, like, did you eat the cookie from the cookie jar? They're going to slip into avoidance. They're going to slip into lies. They're going to slip into blame rather than being honest and owning their actions. And so that's the difference between emotional adulthood and emotional childhood. And even though we're all grown up and we're living in these adult bodies, sometimes we still struggle with wanting to engage in that emotional childhood that can be at work in our situations. So thank you, Jillian. That was a beautiful example. Okay, let me share with you another example that's very similar to what Jillian has just shared. I received an email from a client, and she shared that every year her in-laws host an annual 4th of July barbecue. She does not want to go and be at the barbecue this year, and she's not sure how to handle this. She feels obligated to be there because it's been a part of their past tradition. But this year she wants to enjoy something different. She wants time with her family away from the in-laws, and she'd like to create a new experience for herself and her family. Samantha, how do I handle this situation in telling my in-laws that I do not want to come to the annual barbecue? I don't want to disappoint them, and yet I truly don't want to be there. Okay, this is such a good question. In modeling this out, and I didn't have the opportunity to ask her these questions directly, but in modeling this out from the information that she shared, it's clear to see that her thought is, I don't want to spend time with my in-laws at the 4th of July barbecue, nor do I want to hurt their feelings. Now, in having that thought in our space, it creates similar feelings to what Jillian was experiencing. It can create feelings of shame and disappointment. And whenever we sit in a space of shame or disappointment, we're going to gravitate towards those behaviors of avoidance and disconnect. So I'm going to offer Tara this response. Tara, when you have the thought and the belief that you don't want to be at the 4th of July barbecue, and yet you believe that you can hurt their feelings by saying no, then you're engaging with shame and disappointment as your emotional response. And from this place of feeling shameful, you're going to automatically remove yourself from engaging with your in-laws, and you're going to avoid interactions. Very similar to what Jillian was sharing with us just a moment. Okay? Whenever we disconnect and we choose to avoid those conversations and those people in our lives that deserve answers and attention from us, then we increase feelings of dissatisfaction with ourselves. That's not a really great space to sit in, and it feels very burdensome, and it can feel very heavy. So here's what I want to offer you as a contrast in handling the situation of the barbecue with your in-laws. So we know that you have this annual tradition of having a 4th of July barbecue with your in-laws, and I want to offer you the opportunity to think, we've had many years of happy experiences together. This year, I get to host my own party. When you choose to look at this event, which is the 4th of July, through this lens and through this perspective, it provides you an opportunity to feel more neutral, for sure. more neutral and removed from having any ownership over how they're going to feel. Friends, we truly do not have the power to create feelings for other people. We only have the power to control our own emotions of how we feel and how we do not feel within our own situation. From a place of feeling neutral, then you can show up with your in-laws from a space of love and appreciation, and you can respectfully decline the invitation. And when you do this from a space of love and honesty, it gives them the opportunity to respond in an appropriate way as well. Now, the result for you in letting them know that you don't want to come to the barbecue and doing this from a place of love and compassion, it allows you to increase your feelings of love and respect towards yourself, because you're honoring what you truly want to do with your time and the experience that you truly want to create for your family. You have no responsibility in having to go to the barbecue. But if you avoid it, or if you downplay it, or if you pretend like something else has come up, then it's going to create all this back drama, and it's going to keep you in the space of unclean emotion. And when you operate from there, then it taints your experience in moving forward with your in-laws, and you're always going to have this lingering in the back of your mind and also in your emotional space. So engage in this conversation from a really clean space and let them know where you sit, and do it with love and compassion. And then they get to respond exactly how they want to respond, because they're adults as well. I hope that answers a question for you, and that is helpful to you as you navigate this space with the 4th of July just around the corner. Okay, I do have one more email that I will share, and then I'm going to open it up one more time for questions if anyone wants to engage in questions, or if anyone else wants to come on and be coached this evening. Okay, now my friend has emailed me. I actually know this friend. Okay, her name is Heidi, and she lives down the road from me. She says, Samantha, getting to my gym class at 5 a.m. is so difficult. I want to be a person who gets up in the morning and starts the morning off in a productive way. I'm always happier when I do this, but for some reason I consistently let myself down. Okay, Heidi, the situation that we have here is that you have a gym class that starts at 5 in the morning, and that's the fact of the matter. That's the event that's there, and it's neutral. If we were to ask someone else about their thoughts towards a gym class that starts at 5 in the morning, we would get a completely different response and a completely different set of thoughts than what you've offered. The thought that you shared with me through the email is, this is too hard. I'm not a person who can do the mornings. Now, this is a belief. And earlier in this coaching segment, remember, I invited us to be very cautious in looking at our thoughts and examining whether they're really true or not. This is just a story that you've been telling yourself for some time when it comes to engaging in the morning and showing up for yourself and getting to the gym for your 5 o'clock class. So from this belief of this is too hard and I'm just not a morning person, you create feelings of resistance. In fueling your feelings of resistance, it's going to come and reflect in your actions of having negative dialogue, not getting out of bed, and sleeping in beyond the class and not honoring your true desire. When you take those actions of believing it's too hard, not getting ready and not getting yourself out the door to honor the commitment and the desire of a 5 a.m. workout, then of course you're reinforcing the belief that you're not capable of doing the mornings and that the 5 a.m. class is just too hard. You're nurturing that story. You're nurturing that belief, and it's totally defeating you, and it's also shutting down the opportunity for you to experience something new and to create better for yourself. So I want to offer you first off that this is probably a story that you have a strong attachment toward, and that you're going to have to practice engaging with a better thought and really nurturing a better thought and setting yourself up for success in a new and different way than what you've been experiencing. It's just like driving on that dirt road and being willing to be more attentive and more focused and really watching for those caution signs and watching for those dirt clods and the shrubbery and the sticks that are going to be in your way, because you're going to want to gravitate to what you know, and you're going to want to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and expend the least amount of energy possible, for sure. Okay, so you have a gym class that starts at 5 in the morning, and you really desire to be there because you want to become a morning person. The new thought that I want to offer you, Heidi, is that you could choose to look at this through the lens of This is an opportunity for me to stretch myself. This is an opportunity for me to build a new habit. Simply by looking at your gym class and the 5 a.m. start time with this new perspective, you're opening the door a little bit wider to experiencing something new and creating better results. Now, this thought is automatically going to feel a whole lot better than what you offered, because when you talk to yourself in this way of entertaining new opportunities, of stretching yourself, of building new habits, then you're releasing yourself from that story and you're releasing yourself from the belief and the drama that you just can't do mornings. When you engage with this thought of this is a new opportunity which stretches me and helps me to build a new habit, then it fuels the emotion of capability and empowerment. And when we embrace the emotions of capability and empowerment, it leads to better choices. And the choices that I want to offer to you that you can experience by having that emotion of capability and empowerment are: you can intentionally plan ahead by setting your alarm clock. You can intentionally set out your workout clothes by laying them out on the floor the night before. And you also could potentially invite a friend to join you at that class. By inviting a friend to join you, you're going to create some accountability and some ownership in honoring your commitment. And those 3 actions alone are going to up-level your opportunity for success in creating a new outcome. Because I'm sure you're not going to want to call your friend at 7:30 and have to apologize for missing the pickup time at 4:45 in order to get to the gym. Should you choose to make those choices and engage from that space of planning ahead with your alarm, planning ahead with your workout clothes, inviting a friend to join you in the activity, you have the opportunity to create a new result, a better result. And the result would look like, I'm establishing a new I'm establishing a new routine, and I am a person who can do the morning. Now that outcome is going to serve you far better than the previous belief system that we just coached through. And I want to let you know that is an option and it is available to you if you want to engage in that way. It's going to require that you ask the very best of yourself, and it's also going to require that you're very purposeful and intentional in nurturing that new thought and that new belief. Heidi, reach out to me later today after this call and we can talk through this scenario a little bit further if you want. Okay, friends, if no one else has any questions or comments towards the teaching concepts or towards the coaching that's taken place, I want to thank you for participating with me tonight. I want to thank you for coming into my live event. It is always my pleasure to meet you in this way and coach you through the situations that are at hand. I hope that you will take advantage of the additional reading and the worksheet that's been offered to you. Reach out to me and let me know if I can help you in any other way. Thank you again for joining me. It has been my pleasure to coach with you this evening. Take care. Have a good night.